Welcome to the deep dive. Whenever we talk about cybersecurity, we usually slip right into the defense playbook, don't we? We talk patching schedules, mandating MFA, encrypting data, all the fundamentals.
Yeah.
But honestly, in 2025, focusing only on those feels like preparing to fight last year's war.
It absolutely does. And that observation, it's really at the heart of the intelligence we've been tracking throughout late 2024 and, well, all of 2025.
Right.
The rulebook hasn't just been updated, it's been fundamentally rewritten. The critical realization is that the offense is no longer moving at human speed.
Not even close.
It is operating at the speed of artificial intelligence. So we aren't talking about attack campaigns that unfold over weeks anymore.
No.
We're talking about attack cycles that have collapsed down to mere minutes.
And that's the brutal truth we have to confront. If you want to build a resilient defense, one that can actually cope with this massive acceleration, you first have to understand this turbocharged modern offense. And that's our mission today, to take your sources and unpack 4 key lessons from the most advanced threat groups and state-sponsored campaigns we've seen over the past year. We're doing a deep dive into the new reality of AI speed attacks.
And these lessons, they're distilled from real-world breaches, real campaigns. So they provide, essential guidance for how to evaluate risk. We're going to focus on 4 major trends that really changed the threat landscape.
Okay.
First, your biggest vulnerability isn't your firewall, it's your trusted partners.
Okay.
Second, the job interview might be with a deepfake.
Wow.
Third, AI is supercharging every stage of an attack.
And the last one.
And finally, propaganda is now an automated AI-driven machine.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with that first one, the weaponization of trust. For years, the security model was about building this high, impenetrable wall, the network perimeter.
Right.
It sounds like attackers just decided to stop attacking the wall and start attacking the service entrance.
That's a great analogy. The strategic shift we watched just accelerate in 2025 was moving away from, trying to brute force a network and instead aiming to exploit relationships.
So if I'm the target and my firewall is strong,
the attacker doesn't even bother with it. They just compromise a vendor, a small subsidiary, or maybe an unpatched edge device that's connected to your perimeter.
Something I implicitly trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They weaponize that pre-existing trust to just waltz right in.
And the perfect illustration of this was that campaign attributed to the Chinese-speaking APT cluster, UAT 737.
Yes.
When we look at that operation, what makes it such a perfect case study for this strategy?
Well, what stands out here is the targeting and the choice of initial access. UAT 737, they focused their initial efforts on exploiting unpatched foundational web infrastructure, particularly in Taiwan.
So not the main target itself, but the stuff around it.
Right. We're talking internet-facing servers.
Yeah.
Things like web hosts, remote access portals, communication platforms, the kind of systems that, they may not be the crown jewels themselves, but they're used by lots of different organizations and are often maintained by third parties or just left out of date.
So instead of trying to hack into a major government agency's specific financial server, they hacked the digital equivalent of the building's maintenance staff locker room.
Precisely.
Knowing that locker room has keys to the entire building.
Exactly. And their goal wasn't a quick smash and grab. They breached multiple targets at the same time, and the core malicious activity was repurposing those servers as long-term persistent footholds.
And they weren't using standard malware, right? They were using custom tools.
Correct. They were deploying custom-built hacking tools and what we call bespoke loaders.
What does using customized tooling, these bespoke loaders, what does that mean for the defender? Because that sounds like a massive headache for threat hunters.
It means detection failure. I mean, if an attacker uses off-the-shelf malware, your antivirus signatures or your network tools can spot that known fingerprint.
But with this,
when they use custom-built tools designed for this specific environment, it means the security tools are blind.
So you have to rely on behavioral analysis.
Which is much slower and much harder than just matching a signature. This whole move just illustrates how compromising foundational web infrastructure is now supporting deeper, highly tailored, long-term malicious activity.
And UAT 7237 is just one example. We saw this vulnerability exploited everywhere.
We did. reported APT cases across the entire Asia-Pacific region. I mean, government, manufacturing, chemical sectors in places like Japan and Southeast Asia, they all showed a consistent mix of techniques.
And the common denominator was?
Abuse of exposed edge devices,
Oh.
VPNs, remote access infrastructure. If the network perimeter is strong, attackers will just find the weakest link in your supply chain or your network edge and use that channel of trust to bypass everything.
So if they can't break the network perimeter, they move to the cognitive perimeter. Mm. And that brings us to lesson 2, which is, this is genuinely chilling. It shows AI weaponizing trust at the human level through recruitment scams. This is where it gets really interesting.
This is a perfect masterclass in eroding human intuition.
Yeah.
These are state-sponsored operations run by North Korean hacking groups, notably TA444. They're known for the Blue Nor Off deepfake Zoom scam.
Okay.
And they identified a massive opportunity, the remote work economy, and the hunt for high-value workers, especially crypto developers. So they built an AI confidence machine.
The social engineering here is it's mind-bogglingly advanced.
Okay.
They designed a 4-step process that systematically dismantles a victim's ability to spot an imposter.
It does.
Step 1, they use generative AI to forge entire professional identities. We're talking custom resumes, polished LinkedIn profiles, years of credible experience.
Right. These are not sloppy profiles. They look like legitimate headhunted candidates.
Then step 2 provides the cover story.
The fake U.S. shell companies. They look like genuine, fast-growing tech or crypto firms, which makes them highly attractive to the remote workers they're targeting.
But hold on, why the complexity of a shell company? Wouldn't that slow them down? Why not just use the deepfake right away?
That's a great question. The shell company adds a layer of legitimacy that you need for these high-value targets. If they just reached out as some random person, the target would be suspicious. The shell company lets the initial outreach and vetting process feel official. And that leads to step 3, the real shockwave, the deepfake interview.
This is the Zoom call?
This is the Zoom call. To build that final layer of rapport, the victim gets on Zoom, and the hiring executive they speak to is an AI-generated deepfake.
And it's convincing?
Indistinguishable.
Yeah.
Visually and audibly. And it's used specifically to build professional trust.
So you're having a conversation with an AI that's designed solely to earn your trust for the purpose of betrayal. That's a fundamental challenge to our whole remote work culture.
It is. And once that trust is established, step 4 is the payoff.
They get the job offer.
They accept the job, and they're asked to install onboarding software or a company VPN. And that software is, of course, malware, designed to harvest every credential, every piece of data it can find.
And the impact.
Millions of dollars in stolen crypto and persistent high-level access to corporate cloud platforms like AWS and Google Cloud.
The key takeaway here isn't just that the AI looks realistic, it's that the AI is systematically erasing those subtle, intuitive cues we rely on.
Exactly.
The hesitation, the slight change in cadence, the things that used to tell us, wait, something feels off here?
AI is systematically breaking the human element we rely on to spot these scams.
Which brings us to lesson 3. This is about pure speed. AI isn't just creating a new scam, it's a force multiplier. It's revolutionizing the entire attack life cycle. And when we talk about AI enhancing an attack, we're seeing 4 critical advantages. Efficiency, massive scalability, hyper-personalization, and what was it, polymorphism?
Polymorphism.
Yeah.
The ability to constantly change its form to evade defense. And we can map AI's influence onto every single stage of the traditional attack chain, starting right at the beginning with reconnaissance.
Finding the target.
Finding the target. What used to take a human analyst weeks of manual digging is now automated. Attackers are using tools like OpenGPT, which combines large language models with open-source intelligence databases to generate detailed, personalized target profiles in minutes.
Weeks to minutes.
That is pure efficiency and scalability right at the starting gun of an attack.
And that efficiency, it translates directly into weaponization speed. We've heard about malicious... the technical barrier to entry.
They have. You don't need to be an elite coder anymore. These tools generate highly convincing phishing emails, attack scripts, even full malware components for non-experts.
So anyone can do it.
It enables an unprecedented scalability for criminal operations. I mean, if 1,000 people can now launch attacks that previously required 50 high-level coders, the volume of threats just skyrockets.
Now, let's talk about exploitation. You mentioned this is the most alarming acceleration. What does AI assisting here mean for, say, zero-day vulnerabilities?
This is where automatic exploit generation, or AEG, comes in. AEG tools use AI to rapidly analyze a newly discovered vulnerability and automatically generate working exploit code.
So the gap.
The gap between a vulnerability's discovery, when it's announced publicly, and its immediate weaponization has effectively collapsed to near zero.
So if these AEG tools, like the research done on frameworks like PWNGPT, if they can nearly double the exploit creation success rate from 26% to almost 58%,
And do it at machine speed.
what does that mean for a defender's ability to patch?
It means traditional defense is broken. When a security vendor releases a patch, they're hoping that you, the defender, install it before a human attacker can figure out how to exploit the flaw.
That buffer of time.
AEG removes that buffer of human reaction time entirely. The AI can generate a polymorphic, constantly changing exploit faster than most organizations can even start their patching cycle.
And that speed itself creates the polymorphism you mentioned.
It does, because defenses simply cannot keep up.
So if the threat constantly changes its form, does that mean our traditional signature-based security tools, our antivirus or network scanners, are they effectively useless against these threats?
They become dramatically less effective. They're designed to look for known fingerprints. If the fingerprint changes every few hours, they miss it.
Wow.
And the evasion doesn't stop once the attacker's inside. For command and control, or C2, attackers are now routing their malicious communications through legitimate AI cloud services.
How does that work?
We saw proof of concepts like the Claude C2 research that showed how you can disguise the hidden communications to look like normal business API calls.
Yeah.
Just data flowing to and from a trusted cloud vendor.
That's incredibly difficult to detect. You can't just block all your traffic to AWS or Google Cloud.
You can't.
So across this whole life cycle, from finding the target to exploiting it to maintaining hidden communication AI, is shrinking the defender's reaction window to almost zero.
Exactly. And the final lesson shows that AI's impact is moving beyond the technical network layer.
Right, into the domain of geopolitical influence and cognitive security. This brings us to lesson 4, propaganda as an automated AI-driven machine. And this was blown wide open by the Galaxy Files leak,
It was.
which gave us this unprecedented look into what's described as China's state-sponsored high-tech propaganda operations.
What the leak exposed was the Tianji Intelligent Propaganda System, also known as GoPro. And this is far beyond simple Twitter bots.
Far beyond.
We're talking about an industrialized influence machine. It uses generative AI to automate the creation, the customization, and distribution of highly persuasive content across global social media platforms with minimal human oversight. Its influence at an industrial scale.
And the architecture is layered and incredibly sophisticated. There's a brain system called GoIN that coordinates the whole thing.
Right.
Can you break down what those components actually do in practical terms?
Sure. The GoIN system has 3 primary functions: data, monitoring, and strategy. You have Wenquo for data integration, basically vacuuming up everything relevant online. Then Tianluo for real-time monitoring of public reactions.
And the key component.
Key component is the magic mirror. The magic mirror is the predictive engine. It performs cognitive analysis to determine what narratives are trending, what local audiences care about, and most importantly, which propaganda narratives are most likely to succeed next in a specific place.
So the takeaway here is that this isn't about just generating volume. It's about using cognitive analysis to figure out the most persuasive message for a specific local audience.
And then generating that custom content at machine speed.
Wow.
That strategic engine then feeds the GoPro generative AI component, which creates and customizes the content. And this is all funneled through a global multi-platform account management system designed to manage thousands of fake accounts to perfectly mimic genuine public discourse.
A closed loop.
A closed loop of analysis, creation, and distribution.
And we've seen the real-world effects of this, particularly in key geopolitical areas. For example, regarding Okinawa.
Right.
These inauthentic networks on platforms like X are actively amplifying Okinawan independence and anti-militarization narratives. The goal isn't just to make people angry.
No, it's strategic. The goal is to undermine the Japan-US alliance.
And that strategic framing, coupled with the speed, that's the real weapon.
It is. Look at the Taiwan election in 2024. AI-generated audio and avatars impersonated political figures to rapidly spread scandals. Now, the deepfake content often had subtle forensic flaws if you really looked closely.
But that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because the threat is the sheer scalability and speed. A coordinated volume of sophisticated content can be produced in under 30 minutes. That just overwhelms the capacity of human fact-checkers to keep pace. The speed of distribution guarantees the message gets out there before the truth can even catch up.
So, what does this all mean for us? I mean, across all four of these massive shifts, the pivot to trusted partners, deepfake confidence tricks, automated attack stages, and machine-driven propaganda, the pattern is absolutely unified.
It is.
AI has amplified every single phase of the offense, and it's challenging the very foundation of defense speed and trust.
The main lesson here is that defense can no longer be based on static controls or even just patching faster. You have to proactively understand the attacker's AI profile.
You have to think like they do.
You must grasp how they use automation and these AI-driven capabilities to circumvent your defenses. Only by understanding these fundamental shifts in capability and speed can you accurately judge real risk, prioritize your actions effectively, and, ultimately make confident decisions under tremendous pressure.
That is the essential challenge of the AI era. So, given the incredible acceleration demonstrated by automatic exploit generation tools like PW and GPT tools that can collapse the gap between vulnerability discovery and weaponization to almost zero, what existing security defense strategy do you think needs the most radical overhaul because it still relies on a manual human reaction time? Think about that system you trust that takes hours, not minutes, to respond. That's the one you need to dismantle and rebuild in the AI era.